Welcome back to another episode of TVGP's Game Club. Where this month we are playing, or we have played Cocoon. We're going to do a quick recap on that. I'm your host, Boston, playing this on the PlayStation 5. I'm joined, as always, by Moonpierre.
Xbox Series X, baby.
And Misum.
Hello, also Xbox Series X.
Alright, let's break down all the details about the game here. Released September 29th. I wrote 29 RD 2023. Good job, me. Came out on September 29th, 2023. Published by Annapurna Interactive, which was a very funny credits sequence where both Moon and I had the same experience of seeing that come up. We're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Developed by Geometric Interactive, came out on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series Console, Switch, and PC. Wanted to mention two of the developers here. The composer was Jacob Schmid, who also composed Inside. Have an interesting note here. The game has, from their website, it says, quote, the game has a soundtrack where most ambient background music is generated in real time by a suite of DSP core plugins, specifically K88, BOB, ModNet, Weather, and Wobble, compiled for Fmod, end quote. So, interesting stuff there. It seems like there are some cool details there on their website. And directed by Jeppe Carlsen, who designed Limbo and Inside, which is another moment for me where I went, oh, all right. So, time travel here. Metacritic 88, OpenCritic 87 appears for the release date. Counter-Strike 2, Payday 3, Lies of P, Starfield, a big one, and Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, which, if you don't recognize the name of that, that's the spiritual successor to Jet Set Radio. That came out.
Did that actually come out, or is that still in early access?
No, that came out kind of under the radar, as maybe that game should. It's like counterculture stylings. Let's ask the question we ask every month: was this game top of the pile, middle of the pack, or overlooked?
Oh,
this one's
difficult.
Tough.
Middle of the road.
I'd never heard of it, so it was overlooked to me. But
it's funny because, like, the week it came out, I feel like everybody was talking about it. But because of its length, I think people finished it in that first week and then was like, okay, great. It's almost Game of the Year time, so let's keep moving here. So I think I'm settling on middle of the pack as well. I think it will be maybe in top 10 in Game of the Year lists probably represented this year. But I think in the short term was kind of not talked about a super amount. So we'll see as more people pick it up since it is on Game Pass. So
yeah, and Clapic wrote an incredible piece about it as well over on Remap Radio.
Oh, okay, I'll have to go read that. I haven't.
It's inspired by this game, but about puzzle games in general, and his love-hate reaction to all puzzle games.
I really love Patrick Klepek's stuff. Yeah, let me see if I can figure out what the title of his A House of Cards Built on Trust, Puzzle Design in Cocoon, published on November 7th, 2023, over on rematradio.com.
It's a really good read, and honestly, he kind of sums up how I feel about puzzle games, which is when they make you feel smart, they're incredible.
Right.
When they make you feel stupid, they're the worst thing that exists on the planet.
Yeah, there's such a fine line between, like, I'm not getting it, but I'll keep at it, or I'm never gonna get this, I'm the dumbest human. Like, there's a razor thin line there. Well, let's
let me tell you.
Yeah.
I had to use a guide for once. So what happens with me with puzzle games is I have a tendency, I will go against it, I will bash my head against the wall, and I'll be like, cool, I ain't solving this. What's the actual solution to this particular puzzle? Then once I get that mechanic, or I understood what the mechanic is,
right,
then the next puzzles, which almost invariably always feature the same mechanic time and time again, I'm fine with them. It's the originator of the mechanic where I have to kind of have a little bit of assistance every now and again. And in Cocoon, that's helped and not helped by the fact that there is literally nothing to help you.
So
Yeah.
one of the things I really appreciated about Cocoons, just gonna make up words.
Macaroons, I like them too.
That's right.
The thing I realized a little ways into it is the majority of the puzzles you are trapped with just one or two things you can interact with. Like there's not like
Yes.
a ton of deviation you can do. And once I realized that, and then realized, oh no, they're going for real simple stuff that I'm not thinking about. Like most of them, whatever I got stuck on, usually I could just leave it that day and come back a few hours later or the next day, and I would get it within 15 minutes or so.
The Lego problem, overthinking things in
Right.
Lego games.
And that's a really interesting point, because I think I really loved this game because it's very much a puzzle game that clicks with me. But I think for me, where Cocoon excels is those moments where the puzzles are big enough in scale to feel interesting and big enough to feel like they are a cool puzzle to beat or get your head around or whatever. But in the last probably quarter, 15% of the game, the very last part of that game, I think the puzzles get too big for me to track, and that's when they get really frustrating. Yeah, when the game...
So, out of curiosity, was it specifically the half circle rainbow platform that you had to manipulate to being in different locations? Was it that one?
That wasn't
the one that did me in.
That wasn't so bad. The part that broke me, and I just had to look up guides for the rest of it, was at the very end of the game, you start
Spoilers, by the way, everybody.
Yes, spoilers. Thank you. You start opening these big gates. You put like 2 orbs in front of a gate, and the gate splits open, and you go through it. And at the end of that gate is a teleporter that brings you outside of the gate to one of your orbs. I was okay with those gates until you get to the green one, where you're essentially...
Orbception. Orbception, it just messes with your brain.
You have at least 2 copies of the green orb that you're teleporting between and then manipulating platforms on. That honestly, that broke my brain. And I really tried to do it without... There were a couple of times where I needed to use a guide to like encourage me to find the solution, especially when the purple orb, you were kind of focusing on that one. A lot of those puzzles I really wasn't getting. And then I'd see the solution and I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, I think I understand what we're doing here. But once you get to that point and you're doing multiple nests of orbs within each other to interact, to have stuff interact through an orb, through an orb, through an orb to another one, that was a lot, man.
So that was it for me. It was the white orb. When it starts firing things. Like, cool, I can use it to hit switches and so on and so forth. That's great.
Yeah.
It was when you have to use the white orb to fire a bullet into an orb to interact with something inside of that orb that you fired the bullet into. That's when it was like, okay. Was not expecting this interaction in between everything.
I think to Cocoon's credit, when it all comes together, I get it. Like it none of the puzzles really felt like, oh, I don't know how I was supposed to get that. But for me and for my brain, once you started nesting those orbs, that became just a little bit too much for me to track all at once as I'm playing. And like, I get it, and that like that final puzzle where you're kind of nesting multiple orbs was a really cool mechanic where you're kind of nesting them 4 times. I thought that was really cool, but that was the end point, and the beginning point was, oh, now I opened a gate for the green orb, and my brain just snapped in half. Just like I couldn't do it.
It sounds like
You
I guess we talked about it beforehand. I did not beat to the game, and
Mhm.
I got to where I could get the white orb and it would shoot things, and
Right.
then it was time to start podcasting. So evidently, I have missed out on the entire controversy of the game.
Well,
You're about to hit the mind-bending part.
Yeah.
What it really comes up to. Wait until you have to fire a bullet into an orb to fire it into a different orb to bounce it off a wall to give you enough time to pick up the orb you fired it into to run to a different location to fire it out of.
Yeah.
Yeah, you lost me halfway through that sentence.
Yep.
So
And like, it's really interesting because I mentioned before I really like Cocoon, and I really respect the design here because I think if this game wasn't so tightly designed, it would feel so annoying. Like, all right, pick up this orb to put it down, to pick up this other one and bring it over here to grab this one to do. You're doing like a lot of orb juggling the entire time. But for so many of these puzzles, it felt good to me where I'm like, oh, okay, so I put this here and then, oh, well, I need this one here, so let's switch these and let me go into this one and put this one here to come back out, to bring it to another place, to teleport. Like, all that stuff really made sense, and for me, the difficulty ramp was so smooth up until the point where I had trouble that it all kind of felt like, oh, well, I see one of these things, so I need to carry the orange orb there so it can make a bridge so I can do, oh, but I can't get here, so I'll bring my, like, drone buddy with me, and oh, I can do, and you kind of like unravel and re-ravel all of these puzzles in a way that feels really satisfying. But even with my frustrations at the end, with the level of complexity that was maybe too much for me personally, I still really loved so much about Cocoon, kind of from top to bottom.
I love how freaking weird it is. Like,
yeah,
they could have made this thing look like anything they wanted with these mechanics. They're like, let's do weird cyborg bug things.
yeah, like cyber insect things.
Yeah.
Yeah, mixed with a dash of Lovecraftian, like, elder god things in there, too.
Right.
Yeah. I did not find a ton of the moon elders or whatever it was.
I missed one.
Yeah, I found probably about half of them. They were in all kind of interesting locations, I thought.
Little
They were
secret paths.
Yeah, a lot of like, oh, is that a path off the screen? And it kind of was.
Yeah.
Mentioning your kind of Lovecraftian thing, I think the ending is pretty incredible in a way that I was not expecting.
It's really cool. So I love all of it right until the final shot, and then when the final shot happens, and my cat is knocking over everything. So if you hear loud
Chaos!
clattering in behind me, it's Louise being an a-hole. No, she meows. God.
Featuring Louise, everyone.
Yes. I loved the ending. All of the extrapolation of the orbs, we'll say, to not spoil that bit from you some. But then when they do that stereotypical loop thing and then the achievement name is the end is the beginning, it's like
Yeah.
I don't know if I like this
Well, the
part of it.
Yeah, I don't remember what the trophy name was on PS5, but I don't think it was that, but I don't remember. Either way, I liked it quite a bit, especially visually. It kind of swung for the fences, and I appreciate a game ending that's sort of like, yeah, you figure it out. How do you feel about it? It reminds me a lot of the ending of Inside, where it's like, there it was. How do you feel about it? It's like, I'm not sure.
Sorry, the description is the end is the beginning. It's called Cosmic Architect.
Right.
Almost a Smashing Pumpkins song.
That's right. Yeah, Cosmic Architect, when that popped up, and I was like, okay, now I think I know what the ending of that is. Yeah, I really like so much about this. I especially like the design. I think the sound design, especially the soundtrack, is really good. I think the puzzles are fantastic. It's a very I wish I'd played Limbo because I think I would have liked it. I really liked Inside as kind of a very unique.
No, dude, you would hate Limbo. It has got a giant spider chasing you around for
That's
like
true. I'm not a big fan
50%
of that.
it.
It was pretty scary.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I really did love Inside, especially the kind of last third where the whole thing goes off the rails. And this reminds me a lot of that kind of same sensibility where it's like, we're going to make a really tightly designed, tightly controlled puzzle game, and it's just going to get weird. It's like, yeah, all right.
Mhm.
I appreciate that.
So I do apologize if listeners pick up any weird noises on my side of the track, but I am literally getting assaulted by a cat.
She really just wants to hang out. She doesn't care what you're doing.
No, she
Yeah.
doesn't.
Yeah. I don't know if I have anything else to talk about too much with Cocoon. It's kind of a short game that's kind of the mechanic is orb juggling for the entire time. What do you guys have for, I guess your kind of closing thoughts here?
You know, when you reach the end of that first area and jump out of the world you're in.
Oh, that's such a cool moment.
Yeah. Like it is a lot of cool, weird moments like that that you're just not expecting. I was not expecting to jump out of what I thought was the overworld right before I got, the white orb near the end.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But by then also like it was less surprising because I realized that was this game's currency was how can we break your brain
Right.
how you think of where you're at in this.
Right.
But I thought the animation and art style I thought were fantastic. I agree with you on the music. I wish there was a little bit more music, but I appreciated
Yeah.
the sound design where when I was doing the right thing, usually something was occurring.
That's true. Yeah.
Overall, I really enjoyed the game. My only complaint is on me. I wish I'd started it a day earlier than I did.
Right. Moon, what are your closing thoughts here for Cocoon?
I mean, overall, it's pretty solid. It is, like I said, with a few exceptions, it is one of those puzzle games where I was just like, yeah, I can get behind pretty much all of these puzzles. Like, it's pretty easy enough to figure it out, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's on Game Pass. It's quote unquote free. Obviously, quote unquote. Take my obsession with Game Pass, too hot when I say these kind of things.
Right.
Well, no, it was fun, and it was never stressful. Like, one of the things we haven't talked about is the fact that this game does have boss fights, but you don't die in the boss fights. If you get caught, it literally just throws you out of the orb that you're in.
That's such a cool
which is
animation.
a nice touch.
It just like boots you back out. And there was one boss that I died a couple of times on, or I kind of got kicked out. And every time I got kicked out, I would go back in. I think it was the one with like the 4 legs. And every time I would go back in, I'd take out 2 legs. I'd go back in. It's still missing 2 legs. Like you didn't have to start the entire boss fight back from the beginning. If it started it back from the beginning, it maybe did an accelerated thing where it like got back to the point where you could attack the boss faster. But it was never like, you got to get it right every time. Get back in there. That's a good point. I appreciated that a lot.
Yeah, and like you said, like the music is pretty solid.
Yeah.
Very ambient, very enjoyable. Kind of experience. Like, and again, it's never too stressful.
Yeah. Yeah, highly recommended. Go check out Cocoon. Like Moon said, it's on Game Pass. It's on a whole bunch of other platforms. You should give it a shot. Let's talk about next month's... Sorry, not next month's game. We'll get to that in a second. January's game is going to be Thirsty Suitors. That is came out on PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and PC platforms. That is on Game Pass, if you want to check it out over there. Rewinding a month here. Like we've done for the last couple of years, we're going to be on break for a bunch of time during December, but we're going to bring our yearly Game Club of the Year episode to you. We would rank all 11 games that we played this year.
All 11 games that came out this year? Is
Yeah,
that
all
what you
11.
just
Yep, we
got
played
yourself from
every
saying?
single game that came out in 2023. We nailed all of them. We did great. A big check mark for us. All of the 11 Game Club games this year, we're going to rank them, and we're going to figure out the order that we loved them most in. They are fighting for our affection in the Coliseum, and we'll talk about that next month. That will come out on the normal day when this episode would come out, and then we'll be back with Thirsty Suitors for January. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.